Hello and welcome to Talking Shit About. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and each month I bring on a guest to talk about something they love, something they hate, maybe something they've been through, maybe something they just know a lot about, and hopefully by the end we've learned something and maybe even laughed a little. This month we are talking about the troubled teen industry again. You can check out the first episode, that's number 42 with Fairy. This episode is a lot more detailed in what goes on in the school, so I wanted to give a content warning for that. Please listen with care. And also a content warning for suicide and self-harm. The guest on today's episode is Yui, and this is their second time on the pod. You can check out their first episode, number 2, about Quentin Tarantino, also known as Questionable Tortellini. And I don't know if people are still making that joke, but I am, however, 4 years later? I don't know. I don't respect that, man. Check the episode out. Anyways, we're talking about the troubled teen industry. I have some exciting show updates, but I will keep those at the end of the episode. So for now, let's go ahead and talk some shit.
I was like, what the fuck does that mean? I have friends that are firefighters and I know that they use soap.
And she was screaming at me over soup.
Fuck this, I am not ever talking to a Scientologist again. These people are all insane.
I'm putting my bricks in the dumpsters, motherfuckers. Do you see me, bitches? I'm throwing my bricks. And he's just like chucking bricks.
Hello and welcome, Yui, back to the podcast. How are you doing right now?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, had a nice work week and looking forward to my weekend. But yeah.
Yeah, you got any plans for the weekend?
Besides this, I know I'm going to be working on some sewing projects. Still moving into a new house, so still getting a little settled and everything. Very chill, normal weekend of an adult.
Nice. And for those of you who are not familiar with Yui, they are an artist. And are you a knight now in Belagarth?
I am. I just got knighted this last August, so it is Ser Yui Fawn, if you're in Belagarth spaces.
Yes. Is there anything else you wanted to share about yourself?
I currently work for a nonprofit supporting adults with intellectual and physical disabilities in accessing and engaging with their communities. And it's probably my favorite job I've ever had. So it's nice to feel like I'm doing something positive in the world, especially with the state of the world right now.
Yeah, that's awesome because I know you've had some really shitty jobs. So,
Oh man, yeah. No, Portland has been rough for jobs, but I finally found a winner.
yay. Oh, I'm so happy. So let's go ahead and get into it. This is actually our second episode on the troubled teen industry, but I am so grateful that you're willing to share your story because I think, the more people that speak up, hopefully, the more things will change. I don't know if you have a dictionary definition or if you just want to share in your own words. What is the troubled teen industry?
Well, from my experience of it, it is an industry that is a network of behavioral health programs that, due to some very strange oversight regulations, means that sometimes the programs get to decide what they do as treatment. Sometimes it's a little bit more psychology based in approaches. Others are purely there just for the profit of having bodies in beds. And it's that wide range of programs that makes the industry so treacherous. Like it feels like navigating a minefield sometimes.
Yeah, and from my understanding, those behavioral health professionals don't necessarily have any credentials and are probably not professionals.
In most of the facilities that I experienced, I was working with licensed like therapists and counselors and nurse practitioners. And then there would have been also some like support staff who were there strictly just for monitoring and managing patients. I guess you could call them like orderlies, but they wouldn't refer to themselves as that.
I don't want to say I'm glad that the people that you interacted with were licensed, but I guess better than them not being. So,
No, like I remember my time in those programs, I would hear stories from people who had experienced some of those more wilder programs, like the wilderness programs that you hear about. Like I heard direct horror stories from people who had been in those facilities, and I was like, wow, I have to recognize how lucky I am that I'm only here.
so as comfortable as you are sharing and as much as you're open to sharing, I'd love to hear your experience in the industry.
Well, all of my time with it kind of centers around the time of like from 2006 to 2007. So I don't know any of the changes that have occurred since then, but this was just my experience in that era of Montana. And I first went to Providence Psychiatric and Counseling there in Missoula. I ended up there twice. The first time was after like a short stint at a group home because I had been removed from my mom's house due to some self-injurious behaviors and some attempts on my life. And then I got sent to Providence by, I think it was like a legal court order or something. I don't know. All of this happened without me there. I was just told that all of this occurred. Yeah, I went to Providence first. I went there for about a month. It was normal. They released me like sometime in late December because I remember I was home. It was like in between Thanksgiving and Christmas was my first time there. And it was like, disorienting because I'd also been removed from my home, put into a group home, then put into this inpatient facility. And, you go through the process of like intake through the emergency room. They get you into the scrubs. You have to do the mental health assessment tests to determine your active risk for self-injurious behaviors. And they put you on like I think it was like a 72-hour suicide watch just automatically.
Hmm.
And so it's just this really, I guess the word I'm looking for is dehumanizing because
Yeah.
that's how it was. Yeah, you aren't allowed to have access to your clothes. You're only allowed just the like medical scrubs to wear because it's like the safest clothes just in case.
How old were you around this time?
I would have been, it would have been right before I turned 16. And then once I got out the first time, it was like 2 months later that I had been back in my mom's house after being released the first time. And then the same sort of pattern started emerging again, but also this time with like psychosomatic seizure-like episodes. And I remember those being really weird. It was like kind of a fugue state that I would enter. And I would remember just like bashing my head against things. Like I know I crushed my hand in a locker like repeatedly at one point, like at school. It was very wild. Um, but yeah, I got sent back to Providence after a lot of that happened. And by this time I was like 16. So it was still in the adolescent unit. And then by the end of my second stay, they determined that I was not well enough to be released back to a home environment. So I needed to be sent to a secondary, more long-term inpatient treatment center. And at the time, I didn't know this, but I had already initially been rejected from the Warm Springs facility because I was too acute, which means that that's just too much for them to handle. They won't deal with it. So I was then sent to Acadia in Butte. And if you recognize that name, it's because they were recently shut down permanently because of how terrible they are, or were, I guess. Oh, yeah. I was only there for 1 week and 4 days. And in that time, I was refused medical treatment after injuring myself. Like I had another like psychosomatic seizure episode and had slammed my shoulder repeatedly into the tile floor. And I definitely had like a sprain or something. And they're like, well, we're not taking you to the doctor.
Wow.
And no explanation given.
That is so fucked up.
Yeah. I know during one of the events, they had injected me with like liquid Benadryl or something, some sort of like medication to make me pass out. And it was, ugh, yeah, no, it was really fucked up that they did that. In addition to it being like a facility where there was like no windows, we were all separated by gender, and we were not allowed to even look at or interact with the boys' unit. Yeah, like they always constantly tell you how they're like, well, we're preparing you for how to deal with real life, but
Avoiding men at all
yeah,
costs.
we are segregating you to the point where if you even look at them, you're in trouble.
Oh my God.
No, it was so weird. And then I think it was the day that I found out that I was being released from the Butte facility because they're like, well, you're too acute for us. So that means you can't stay here anymore. I was having like a really hard time with it because I'm like, well, you guys said you were supposed to help and you've done absolutely nothing, and it's been less than 2 weeks. And they finally allowed me to interact with a person that I had been in treatment with back in Providence. Yeah, no, the amount of people that you meet in other facilities, and then if you move to another one, you'll see them again. Like it's crazy.
And I'm guessing you had no say in where you were going or what was being done to you or anything like
No,
that.
like yeah,
Okay.
this was all things that I was being told were happening as they were happening. I was not included in any of the discussions, any of the like anything essentially. It was just things that I had to do. That just made me think of when I was being transferred from Providence the second time to Acadia. My mom was supposed to transport me, and because she was also having to deal with it emotionally, she wanted a person to be there to support her. And at the time, I didn't really like my mom's boyfriend, now husband. And so I was like, I'm not going if he's going to be there because I was just being incredibly obstinate. But also, I had spent like 2 months in the most like tumultuous situation I have ever encountered. And all I wanted was my mom there and not him. And I remember like I had to negotiate. It was like my mom and my case manager at the time. Her name was Nina. She was really nice. I ended up like demanding that she was the one who was going to be there with us because I just wanted another advocate for myself. And my mom turned it into like a weird, like, how could you do this to me type of situation? Because somehow it was harder for her to have to go through this than me.
Like she's the victim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turns out that maybe some of my trauma was from my parents. Oops.
Yeah, that happens.
Uh,
So your case manager or worker, her name was Nina?
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Can you
know
tell me a little bit about her?
yeah, I know I had first started working with her that first time in Providence, and she would just kind of check in with me weekly. We would sometimes like go out and get like lunch or something, and it was just like I'm guessing it was just some sort of like consistent support to like a spiraling teen who just needed some sort of consistent positive influence in their life, with
Mhm.
also connecting me to resources like therapy and counseling and things like that to avoid having to stay in these facilities for even longer than I ended up staying.
Well, I'm glad you had somebody out there.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I really appreciated all of the support that she gave me, and I hope that wherever she is, she's doing well.
Shout out to Nina. We love you, Nina.
But yeah, after being in Acadia, which, yeah, that I still think of how much like a prison that place was. Like, no windows, so no sunlight. And the only non-opaque window was a very tiny square window in our classroom that only looked up to the sky. Everything else was this like weird, really scratchy, non-see-through plastic that basically just allowed light in if you were in your bedrooms only, not in like the common area where we would hang out like 90% of the day. And yeah, just imagine 10 to 15 teenage girls shoved in a like maybe half the size of a regular public school classroom, and you're just sitting there all day.
Did you have anything to do?
Uh, we were
Games or
we were encouraged to like draw, journal. We would sometimes get taken out for like individual therapies. But yeah, it was mostly just hanging out in that room. Sometimes we would watch movies, sometimes we would play games, but most of it was just sitting there being fucking restless. And I was also one of the few people there who was there strictly for only mental health reasons. A lot of people were also dealing with legal things as well, and this was kind of their last stop before juvenile detention centers. Because not to say that like these people were dangerous, they were also dealing with their own crises, and was how they were coping. But it was also just it was their final chance before they were going to get sent to prison, and a lot of them knew that. Yeah, there was a weird hierarchy type situation in Acadia, and oh man, ugh, I still think about my first night there a lot because I've been. Oh, fun fact, before I get into this story, if you look up Acadia, like on Google, you can see my actual Google review that I left in addition to so many other people. Like, there's not one single positive review because of how horrific that place was.
and that's not the one in Portland, is it?
No, this is in Butte, Montana, or was in Butte, Montana.
Okay, I'm looking it up right now. Okay, continue.
But yeah, my first night there, I was given a mental health assessment, and I had like read it incorrectly because of how the form was phrased. And so I was put on an extended suicide watch outside of like what normally would happen because my psychologist had left for the weekend, so I could not retest until Monday. And so I am in a brand new environment where everybody else gets to wear their own clothes. I am given like cut off sweatpant shorts, a really flimsy, like, those like Hanes t-shirt packs, like one of those t-shirts, some grippy socks, and some slippers. That's what I had available to me. And I got to spend all weekend dressed like that. And then people were like not interacting with me because of it. And then that first, like, you kind of do like group check-ins, like when new people come in to be like, this is my name, this is why I'm here, type like icebreaker for inpatients. Like, imagine workplace or college icebreaker games, but it's all about your mental health. So it's worse.
Name 3 ways you want to die.
My name's Huey, and I'm here because I have dissociative episodes. And yeah, when I essentially did not get the joke that the other patients who were already there and were well established, and they treated it like it was just some stupid thing because they're so sick of it, they would make up fake reasons and they would get more and more hyperbolic. And when it got to me, I just genuinely expressed why I was there. And so they all start laughing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Because it's not traumatic enough being there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. No, sorry. But yeah, I don't know. Once they realized that I was being serious, they were like, "Oh shit, we were just joking. Like, we didn't actually mean to laugh at you." But yeah, not a great start to one of the worst experiences of my life. But yeah, after I got kicked out of there because I was just expecting basic care and to, I don't know, not be drugged all the time.
Yeah.
Uh,
Treated like a human. That'd be
yeah.
nice.
Oh, also, I know I left it in that Google review that I mentioned. In the time that I was there, which was a week and 4 days, my psychiatrist had suggested an experimental brain surgery where they would put in a temporary, like, something to track my brain activity and then later take it out
What
because
the
they were
fuck?
so focused on my psychosomatic seizures instead of literally anything else. And thank goodness my mom, like, because up until that point, my mom was just like saying yes to anything that was suggested because, like, she was also spiraling after being in an abusive relationship, which was one of the reasons why I had my own mental health break with being in that situation. But yeah, I'm so glad that she stopped saying yes once we got to that place.
Did you ever make any connections with the other kids that were there?
A few. I know I'm still like Facebook friends with a few people that I've met. But yeah, not many these days. But I mean, it's been like over 15 years. So I met a person who had been in Acadia in the next place that I would be sent to, which was a behavioral center in Idaho. Because
Ugh.
after my, yeah, no, fuck Idaho. Uh, I hated Idaho before I joined Belgars.
That'd be a great bumper sticker.
Oh my God, I need to make that shit. Anyway, back on track. So once I was kicked out of Acadia, that meant that I had reached my 3 strike limit in state, which it means that once you are rejected from 3 separate facilities within your home state, that means you are then shipped out to the next closest state
Oh,
that will accept you.
oh my God.
And for me, that was Idaho. Yeah, so I got sent to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho at the Kootenai North Idaho Behavioral Health Center. I stayed there for a little over 6 months. So pretty much the majority of my junior year of high school was just being in treatment. This place was definitely a lot better than a lot of places that I have heard of. It still wasn't great. When I was preparing for this, I was just trying to like think of all of the weird things that occurred there. And there are so many, like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start.
So, how old were you at this point? Do you remember?
I still would have been 16 at this point.
Okay. So, this is all.
So kind of timeline of events. End of November, beginning of December 2005 was my first time in Providence. February would have been the second time in Providence and my time in Acadia. And then from about March until, oh geez, it would have been August of 2006.
So, it's not even like a year of all of this change that you had to go through.
Yeah.
Like, how did they expect you to succeed in a program if they don't give you time to adjust? Like, that's insane. Stupid.
No, it was very silly. And then just to kind of like set up your idea of this place, there was, it was essentially just like a giant kind of school-like building with like common areas, a cafeteria, like a school building or room, a gymnasium, and then there would be gendered units with like the bedrooms, and each bedroom had like up to 4 beds, I think, or sometimes two, depending on the size of the room. The doors were never allowed to be closed. And this was also true in Acadia as well, which they had no doors on either the bedrooms or the bathrooms, by the way. Blah, weird. At least Idaho did have doors on the bathrooms, but like obviously no locks. But we weren't allowed to shut our bedroom doors unless we were instructed to do so in like emergency shutdown situations, which did happen often. And kind of same like weird scratchy windows where you can't see clearly through it. There were as few clocks as possible in that entire place. Like I remember maybe a total of 4 clocks. And so it kind of created this weird atmosphere of like, what time is it? Because again, we had no like outside windows unless we were in our bedrooms, and our bedrooms were not a place we were meant to be unless it was like getting ready for the morning or getting ready for bed or being asleep, or if we had to be there for security reasons. Otherwise, we were just always in the common areas or being shuffled from group to group. Or if it was like during the week, we would have like essentially school work that we would be doing. I did earn a few of like my high school credits while in that facility.
This picture that you're painting of this place, it is crazy. It's all like fitting perfectly with my time in Cedar Hills I think it's Hillsborough, like mental health facility. And I was in the like, I don't know what it's actually called, but I'm gonna call it like the chill ward, like the one with like people, I don't know, I guess who they consider less of a threat to themselves or others, but
Mhm.
still, not.
Did you guys have like a levels system that you had to follow?
No.
Um,
So I was like, the ward I was in was like pretty short-term treatment, like usually like a couple weeks stay. And it was as an adult, so there wasn't that. But tell me about the level system.
Okay, so in Idaho, specifically just Idaho, we had this system of you started off at level 0. That was your intake level. You would earn points for completing tasks or going to groups throughout the day. And your general schedule of a day would look like you would be woken up around maybe 6 or 7 a.m. I wasn't quite sure. But then you were given less than half an hour to prepare for your day, to get dressed, groomed, showered. And that was you and all of your roommates with your one shower. And you were expected to be out to breakfast on time. If you were not, you would lose points. If you didn't shower, you would lose points. And you could earn a certain amount of points in a day, and those would add up to gaining like a level, which included like extra privileges and like access to your own personal items, extra things that would be denied to people of lower levels. So it was definitely creating this like, oh, you got to behave if you wanted to like do good. And everybody knew that if you reached like a level 5 or 6, that meant that you were going to be going home very soon.
Yeah, no, we
And
definitely didn't have that, but they required you to attend so many group sessions. It wasn't until my second to last day that I learned you could request individual therapy, but you had to know that you could ask for it.
what the
Um,
fuck?
yeah, that'll be another episode, I'm sure, but please continue.
Um, oh my gosh, that's wild because we specifically had both group therapies with like we would be put in like co-ed groups, even though we were still separated by gender, encouraged to not interact with each other, but they would put us in like A group and B group. So like half of each ward would be in one activity while the other half would be in another, just to kind of like keep us, I don't know, not as connected. I don't know what
Mhm.
their whole schedule was like, but yeah, it would be like waking up, breakfast time, usually like schoolwork in the morning, like a group therapy activity, lunchtime, and then we would be forced to essentially take a nap afterwards. But we couldn't go to our bedrooms to do this. We had to lay
Uh,
in the common area to do it. And we would listen to some relaxation CDs.
Oh, that
Ugh.
reminds me, I had a question earlier. So aside from the relaxation CDs, did you guys have any access to music?
It was a special privilege to listen to our own music that you had to earn after a certain level. Um, and then it was like your kind of weekly reward if you like met the points goal for the week. You could choose like either 30 minutes of listening to music, but it had to be the facility CDs. It couldn't be your own
Oh,
personal
God.
ones. But they did make like mixes of like popular songs that they were like, okay, this doesn't actively talk about self-harm because it was, mid 2000s, like height of emo music, which
Yeah.
yeah, I remember listening to Motion City soundtrack, and a lot of their songs talk about being depressed and sad and maybe hurting yourself and doing not great things. But one of their songs, it starts off as "Let's get fucked up and die,"
Uh,
and I kind of forgot that that was the beginning of the song
mhm.
when I was listening to that with like a nurse. This was back in Providence, by the way.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, yay, I finally get to listen to my own music. And all of it is like, oh, we can't listen to that. We can't listen to that. I'm like, shit.
That reminds me of when I was in Cedar Hills, we were doing this group therapy session and we were doing like arts, and they asked everybody to like share one song that we would all listen to. And I wanted the same sort of criteria that you
Mhm.
had. And I was like, okay, what is a song A that I can remember? Because I don't have access to my phone to look at all these songs. Like, what is
Yeah.
music? And then B, something that like everybody will enjoy, not just me. And I was like, oh my God, Natasha Bedingfield, Pocket Full of Sunshine. Duh. Like, you can't think of a better song. And then one of my friends goes like, you know that song's about cocaine, right? And I was like, that's fucking bullshit. Like, no, it's not. Like, that's fake news. And the nurses, they were younger and they didn't like know the song, or if they did, like they didn't know the title or whatever. And so they're like Googling the lyrics, and I'm like, God damn it. Like, I got genuinely like mad. Like, I didn't say anything, but I was like, come on, guys. Like, it's fucking Natasha Bedingfield. They did play it, which was great. But yeah, it was. They're like, oh, it can't be about drugs. And I'm like, it's literally one of the most wholesome songs ever. Like, please stop.
Uh, I remember being super mad because like I was giant fucking emo and the Black Parade had just come out like that previous
Ah.
October, and so that was my entire identity. Um, yeah, anytime I got to listen to any of that album in treatment, it was like the thing that kept me going. And that's probably why I have such a strong connection to that album. But yeah, anyway, back to the weirdness of Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still can't get over like the level system of like if you didn't participate enough in the groups, you could not get full points for the day. If you were arguing with staff or being obstinate, you could be docked points for whatever reason they felt like. If you didn't finish your meals, you could be docked points. And yeah, if you did not earn enough points, you could also lose levels. So I immediately clocked that, like, oh, you have to follow the rules if you want to get out of here. Because I remember there was this one person who had been in and out of like treatment centers for like the majority of their life. Like they were 16 at the time. Like their entire identity was like, I have spent so much time in mental facilities. And I'm like, cool, I never want to be that. And so I did everything I could to get myself out of there as fast as I could. It wasn't about me trying to make myself better. It was just being compliant and listening to what staff said. And that's how I never got sent to a essentially timeout. Like if you were deemed too obstinate or something, a staff could make you go sit in a chair facing the wall for upwards of 20 to 30 minutes.
That's good for your mental health.
Yeah. And then once your timer was over, because there would be a person always at the nurse's station, and they would be in charge of the timers. So when your timer went off, you were called up to the nurse's station and you were supposed to tell the attendant, like, what got you sent to this quiet time, because that's what they fucking called it too. Um, because there was the one that you could self-elect to do if you were feeling like, hey, I'm about to freak out and I need some space. And I know I self-elected to do a few of those, but I was never directed by staff like, you have to do this the entire time I was there because I was just like, nope, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to have to sit and explain, like, this is why I was wrong for doing something that felt like a natural and justified reaction for all of the insane things that you're putting us through.
That's some culty shit.
Yeah. Oh man, I still think about the time that I gained an entire level in one day for essentially tattling on a roommate. Granted, I did not like this person. I hated having to interact with them. They wrote me a note and left it on my pillow of like, hey, I might potentially hurt myself and I don't want you to tell staff because I don't want to get in trouble. And I'm like, I don't see why you told me this.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of saying anything after I read the note, I just walked back out to the door because you also had to set, if you were in your bedroom and you needed staff's assistance, you had to have this little like card that you would set out in the hall for staff to notice. And then once they did, they would like come talk to you. And so I was just like sitting at my doorway with my little sign out and like basically like the call attendant button on a fucking flight.
I'm a human that needs attention, please.
Right? And yeah, I just like wordlessly hand them the note and then like walk back to my bed. And they call her out into like a private meeting. And then they call me out up to the nurse's station. And they're like, we're really proud of you for not keeping that a secret. And we're rewarding you with like, I think I got up to like level 4 with
Mhm.
that, which meant I was like very close. Like I was like 2 or 3 levels away from being deemed worthy of going home, all for ratting out another person. Oh man. And with like gaining levels, it's like you get those like privileges, which would include like, you know, like use of your own clothes and personal items, access to sharps, like tweezers, scissors, nail clippers, and only under like heavy supervision once a week.
Mhm.
Oh man, the rare treat of being allowed to go outside. Um,
Yeah.
oh, like we even had an enclosed courtyard. There was the cafeteria, the gym, our schoolroom, and then a hallway. And in the middle of it was just this like grassy strip. And we would beg the staff to go out there because like I was there during the summertime, so it was like getting nice out and like we could vaguely see that it was nice out through our windows and we're like, please, can we go outside? We just want to fucking see the sky. And they're like, no.
Same as the hospital.
Yeah. I think in the 6 months that I was there, I got to go outside a total of 5 times,
That's so fucked
including
up.
including the one time that I got to go on like a day outing with my family when they came to visit.
That is like the opposite of what people need for mental health. Like, yeah. So
Ugh.
how long were you there for?
From like early March until mid August, because I know I was home in time to start my senior year of high school at home. Yeah, so a little over 6 months, I think, if I can do math in my head correct. Oh, sorry, I'm still getting like so lost at how, like, just thinking about the weirdness that occurred there, like the restriction of phone calls. We had to have a set up list of people we were allowed to call that you had to determine on your intake, and that you couldn't really change after that time either. So it's like, hopefully you only want to talk to these people for the rest of the time you're here. Sorry, this is kind of uh, leading me into, oh, there's no way to not feel emotional about this topic because it occurred
Yeah.
at this place. Like, for example, we were only allowed 5-minute phone calls once a week, and it would have been in June, so like about a month before I left. I was called into a special meeting with my therapist, and she told me, it's like, hey, we're gonna call your mom because there's something really important we have to talk about. And I found out that my best friend had died of cancer a week prior, and I wasn't finding out until then because they determined that it would have been too traumatic for me to find this out on a 5-minute phone call. And that was also where I learned that I was not going to be allowed to go to her funeral either because it had already happened. And I remember like just completely tapping out after that point. Like, even though I had been very, very compliant and, you know, trying my best to get through that program, I was still, you know, feeling the emotions of this really traumatic scenario that I'm being put through. And then to find that out just broke me in a lot of ways. And even to this day, like thinking about it, just it makes me so angry. They chose to deny me that. And they routinely denied that to other people who also lost family members because it was determined it would be too detrimental for their overall treatment goals to be released and allowed to
Grieve.
Yeah, being allowed to grieve naturally. No, it's so wild. But I also feel like after that happened, the staff just treated me with like patted hands of like, oh, well, you know, this just happened, so you can kind of do whatever. And it was about a month later that I finally got out of there.
Did you like quote unquote complete the program?
Yeah, I did. I think I got up to like a level 5. Oh man, every day during like our after breakfast like check-in, we would all have to go around and like every single fucking day read out our diagnostic plan with the group. And so like I've been diagnosed with blah blah blah, which I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, severe depression, and borderline personality disorder. And so it was just like reading through this sheet, what treatment goals we had for the week, what progress we were making on them. And oh my God, so stupid. I can't believe they made us do that every fucking day.
Yeah, and isn't that like a violation of HIPAA?
Well, we were in a secure facility, so you know, fuck it, I guess.
So how did it feel getting out? Like, what was the transition back home like?
I remember it being really weird because I had left springtime of my junior year. So, like, that entire second semester, I was just gone. And I remember hearing from like all of the students and like my friends in my classes, they were like, we were just expecting you to come back like last time, and you just never did. Yeah, it was weird to hear that, how everybody just expected me to come back soon. And they even left like my desks open, they kept my locker open. But I know it was still summertime, so I at least got to hang out with like a few of my friends in the area. And we just moved into a new apartment at the time, so like everything was kind of different from what I remembered, which also felt like an extra level of jarring to like leave home in one place and then come home to an entirely different space. And then I remember having to go in with my mom before school started to talk to the counselors, because right after I had been released from treatment, my cat mauled my arm, and I have like a really long 5.5-inch scar that kind of like wraps around my forearm in a way. And we had to write a note of like, we swear this isn't self-harm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a fun thing to have to do. And especially since I went back into kind of the scenario that led me to going to those places in the first place. And my entire mindset was do anything I can to avoid going back there. It wasn't focused on like treating myself or addressing any of the issues that I had. It was purely about never go back there because I don't want to. So never show anything like that ever again.
What are some
That
things that have helped you? I mean, there's no way to just like get over something like this, like the big T-traumatic, the whole thing. But what are some things that have helped in the healing process for you?
I know for a while, like we were all just told to journal all the time. And I continued that habit for at least several years after. I still actually, sitting right next to me are juggling balls, because one of the groups that we would go through during our day was like we would rotate like physical activity, yoga, or juggling. That was one of the few skills that I actually picked up from being in my time in treatment, was learning how to
Mm.
juggle.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
cool.
I'm still not very great at it, but it was still fun and I can still somewhat do it. And I still have the juggling balls from treatment actually. So it's always kind of like a weird little memento that I've just kept over the years. Because yeah, like you never forget, obviously, but I have tried to recontextualize some of the coping mechanisms that were given to us in that time. And it definitely helped once I found dialectical behavior therapy and EMDR therapy. But that wasn't until like a good almost 10 years after I had left treatment.
Something that's come to mind, you telling this story is like, especially when you're talking about the levels and like these kids having to go back down. Recovery, and when I say recovery, I'm not just talking about like substances, but like mental health. It's not linear. Like you don't just feel bad, get meds, or go through whatever treatment, get better forever. Like the wines and something will trigger something, and like there's just so much to it. And like sometimes you take a few steps backwards and then, eventually you go forwards, but it's not linear. And oh fuck, I'm going on a tangent, but yeah, so the healing, I'm glad that, it might have taken, I'm not glad that it took time, but I'm glad that now it's happening for you. And yeah, it's just a good reminder for folks that you don't just fix yourself. Like it's a process.
Mhm.
It's a journey.
No, it definitely took a long time of refusing to accept my diagnoses because I was embarrassed, to then like kind of making my diagnoses not my entire identity, but like I was very aware of how they affected me. And I had to take a lot of time and consideration in the ways I would respond to issues because of that. And it was that learning process of like relearning how to listen to myself outside of that heavily restricted and controlled environment that really started kind of kickstarting any sort of recovery process that I have had over the years.
Well, you've been through some serious shit, Yui, and I'm proud of you for surviving. I'm happy to have you around.
I'm happy I'm still here.
Yeah. Are there any closing thoughts or anything else you wanted to touch on?
Even though a lot of really terrible things happen, like just like in any sustained terrible scenario that anyone could potentially go through, there was still those like little moments of joy. And like while like kind of doing any sort of like research or like looking through my notes and stuff, I actually found like a little picture that somebody had colored for me, and I've like kept it all these years. I'll send you a picture of it, but
Yes, I would love that.
it's got like it's a picture of a Care Bear, and it has like all these little fun little notes and inside jokes from this person that I met in treatment. And yeah,
Oh, I
it's
love
just
that.
really like I know at the time it was, I don't know, I didn't really intake how I had affected other people, but especially looking at it today and seeing how I've I've evolved, but I'm still that same person. it's nice to know that there's some sort of through line with myself in some sense. And yeah, looking at it makes me really happy. So it's nice to be able to remember the good things in spite of all of the bad.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you, Yui.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'd love to see that picture too.
No, I
So,
will definitely send you a picture of it.
if anyone would like to check out your work, is Funhouse Design still where they can do that?
Yes, you can find me at Funhouse Designs, spelled Faunhaus Designs on both Instagram and Facebook. I'm a little bit inactive right now, but I'm trying to get back into crafting and like posting all of my sewing stuff. But that's mostly where you can find me online.
Yes. And Yui made my cape for my wedding. Thank you, Yui.
You're welcome. It looks so good.
Yes, it does. Everyone's always like super excited. Not that I get to wear it that often, but when I do,
Mhm.
people are impressed.
And it felt
Uh,
really special to also make Cecilia's outfit too.
yes. Oh yeah, duh, that too. And it was so cool. Yeah, maybe I'll post pictures on social media.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Yui.
Thank you.
I asked Yui if I could read their Google review of Acadia, and here's what they wrote 8 years ago. Quote, I was admitted here for a total of 1 week and 4 days. In that time, they stole my jewelry or lost it or whatever, but I lost a family heirloom and they deny any involvement or that they ever had it in the first place. Was put on an extended suicide watch for no other reason than my doctor had left for the weekend and they said they could not retest me even though they had figured out that I misunderstood the questions and was answering on a general sense and not in the past few weeks. So they subjected me to a forced social isolation from being the only person in cut-off sweatpants and a flimsy $5 white t-shirt from a pack. When asked why I wasn't allowed to have a sling for my injured arm or see a doctor whatsoever, when someone else had one at the same time because of a broken collarbone, they gave the reason of, well, she shouldn't have one in the first place, so we can't give you one too. Suggested experimental brain surgery for temporary placement of a device to track brain activity that they would later remove. Keep at least 10 people in a windowless, medium-sized room for a majority of the day. Kept me heavily medicated to avoid me asking for medical treatment. Too long didn't read? This place is a time-traveling torture center from the 1900s for children who are already ill. Yui's review has the most likes on Google, and the second most likes is somebody claiming to have worked at Acadia. I don't really agree with how they refer to some of the children as, but I think it's important to get some context. So here's what they wrote, quote, I worked the floor with the kids here for 7 months, and I would never recommend this place to anyone. I miss the kids and my coworkers, but it's an extremely toxic environment for kids and residents. I have watched lives be put in danger and staff and residents to be put in the hospital or emergency room, and at the time we weren't even allowed to press charges. They allow you to press charges now, but some of the administrators still don't agree with it. The woman in admissions told me that she doesn't believe in pressing charges on patients even if they kill someone. I'm sorry, but I think that human life has more value than even if they are, quote, damaged kids. She also said to me, quote, they're damaged kids and most of them will end up in jail when they're older anyway, end quote. The other kids they hurt and the staff have far more value than just mere punching bags. Most of the staff I worked with have also quit. It's an extremely violent, unhealthy, and unsafe place. There are also other issues like the roof leaks, etc. Please do not subject your children or yourselves to this place. There are better facilities and options out there. For many, this is not a place of healing and hope, but more of a stagnant pool of dysfunction and a living hell. So, short answer, don't fucking send your kids to a troubled teen program. And with that, that is a wrap for this month's episode of Talking Shit About. You may have noticed that the show is getting a makeover. We are now swearing on this podcast. Well, we were always swearing on this podcast, but now in the logo and when you search for it, no asterisks, just the I. We're just spelling out shit. We're just spelling shit. So funny story, I left my job and I am trying to set up a home studio and I could really use people's help getting furniture and decor because I'd like to start adding a visual element to the show. And in order to do that, I need a room that does not look like just a chaotic, manic mess. So if you would like to help with that, there will be a link to my Amazon wish list in the show notes. Things range from like $8 to more. And I could really use an office chair, to be honest. So you really use your support in getting that set up. I will be having a Patreon set up here soon. No timeline yet, but keep an eye out for that. You can follow us on Instagram at killizabeth.pod or email us to be a guest or suggest a topic at killizabeth.pod@gmail.com. And of course, the mandatory like the show, give it a rating, subscribe, download episodes as they come out. Please and thank you. It really helps with the algorithms. And with that, I am going to close out this episode. If you need mental health resources, please check out the show notes. And again, if you have the funds, not many of us do, I sure as fuck don't, please help me in building my studio. Thanks and see you later.